here with us today. She is the founder and CEO of Presenting Perfection LLC, which focuses on helping individuals of all ages be the narrator of their personal story. With over 25 years of experience in the communications industry, Catherine has a deep understanding of world global communication and has worked as a journalist, a public relations executive, a college professor, and an executive coach. Today, Catherine's talking to us about the importance of self-discovery and self-exploration. She's going to talk to us about how to find what drives you, how to bring those values to life, and you'll walk away with the motivation and the confidence for everything from creating an authentic personal brand to public speaking to interpersonal communication. Before I turn it over to Catherine, I just want to give you all a heads up that we are recording today's webinar. So if you miss anything or if you want to go back and replay your favorite parts, you can find the video on our website tomorrow afternoon on elevatenetwork.com. And if you run into any technical issues during the webinar, feel free to use that chat box to let me know and I can troubleshoot with you there. You can also email us at info@elevatenetwork.com if you're having trouble with the chat. And please use that chat box to send in your questions for Catherine. She'll be answering those questions at the end of her presentation. That's all for me. Catherine, if you're ready, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
I am, Joanna. Thank you for that lovely introduction. That was fantastic. So welcome, everybody. So today we're going to talk about the power of you. And, it's a little bit of self-discovery, a little bit of self-exploration. And, ironically, we had this webinar on the docket, I think since December. So the timing of this is sort of ironic because most of us are kind of too busy most days running around, whether you have kids or working or both, as it comes in my case. We really don't have the time to think sort of beyond what moment we're in, let alone kind of about ourselves, about our career, about the direction our career is taking. So it's ironic that we're giving this webinar during the middle of a global pandemic. And I keep saying it's a horror movie with no ending. Please, listen, think as we're doing this, save your questions for the end, just because I want to get us through the concepts. I would, love any reactions, responses you guys have to this webinar. I've done this talk a bunch of different times and it seems to resonate with people really well, but in different ways, because we're all obviously at different stages of our lives and different stages of our careers. So this talk really is ideal for anybody who's, mid-career and likes their job, but just kind of wants more inspiration, or someone who's been home raising their kids for the past 10 years, who is looking to get back into the job market and to think about kind of what you want to pivot into kind of from where you were from post that. And it's great also for entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and mompreneurs. I can't do the whole entrepreneur thing with that. But for anyone who's thinking about directions that they're either in and want to expand, or directions that they want to take their career into. So again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking the time, and let me get right into it. Whoops. So sometimes in your life, you got asked that question of who are you? And I know for some of us, it comes at different stages, as I was just saying. For me, I think the first time it came to me was probably right after that first job out of college. We all hopefully, it's hard right now, but hopefully we all get jobs right when we get out of school. And you go into something that you think you want to be, and you do it for a year or for 2 years. And you kind of think about, well, how did I get here? How did I wind up in this position? And is this really what I want to be? And then you also might ask this question of who are you 10 years after that? Or maybe you do it after you get married, or maybe you do it after you've had a couple of kids, or maybe you do it after a job has ended unexpectedly. So there are times in life where we ask, who are we and where are we going? And that's where this concept of the Discover You came from. So what we're going to do today is we're going to focus on the concept of you. We're going to define it. Then we're going to talk about how you can get to know yourself and how you can discover more about yourself. And we're going to talk about the benefits of it. And then at the end, we're going to talk about how you can really bring it to life. And to quote my kids, you do you. So first, the concept of you. So the idea of the word you, the simple word you, is that it actually has meaning. And in this case, in this talk, you stands for your own understanding of yourself. And that might be cerebral, that might be like, well, yeah, so what? Or it might be somewhere in between. But the thing is that you is such a commonly used word in the English language. And we often don't think about what the meaning is. And a common phrase that we all know is, do you understand? And we just say, well, do you get it? Do you understand? Do you know what I'm talking about? But if you break that word apart and look at each of those letters individually, it's your own understanding of yourself. And clearly, the way that you think about yourself is the most important thing when it comes to the rest of you, when it comes to the totality of you. One of the questions that I hear bounced around in a lot of these workshops I go to is, what's your why? Why are you doing this? Why are you thinking about doing that? Why do you want to take your career in a certain direction? And the reality is, without an understanding of who you are, you don't really know your why. And so that's kind of the catalyst behind this whole concept and thought. And the truth is, if you understand who you are, then you're going to understand your motivations. You're going to understand what makes you happy. You're going to understand what satisfies you. And it helps you understand who you are, what drives you, and what inspires you. And this is all about discovering the truth about yourself. Okay, so you starts with self-discovery. Okay, most of us think we know who we are, but we don't really have a strong sense of our motivation, fears, and inspirations. We don't usually think about those things until something happens. Right? Maybe you lose a job. Maybe you're in a situation that terrifies you. Maybe you go to a talk by someone. Maybe it's an Elevate Network event. Maybe it's one of the great webinars that they do. Or maybe it's just something that you come across. And you're like, wow, that was amazing. And you're momentarily inspired, but we don't really think about why inspires it us. We just know that it does. The second part of this is time. It's weird, right? And I know I fall into this category. We spend all this time getting to know other people, but we don't really take the time to get to know ourselves. Acceptance is part of this as well. It's weird too, in that most of us look to other people to help define who we are, and we're always looking for how we relate to other people, as opposed to thinking, who are we and what makes us unique or what makes us special? And the other part of this is social norms. Instead of looking within, most of us live according to the rules that we think society wants us to live by. And with things like Instagram and Snapchat and watching, influential American families, be it good or be it bad, be it the Kardashians or a bunch of other folks, so many of us look to those people to see what they do and how we should model our lives after that. And that's not necessarily the right thing, but it's the easy thing, because self-discovery takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of honesty for you with yourself. So what we realize when we start down this road and we start down this journey, and again, this journey, as I said before, is going to come for each of you at a different place in your life, is that your power comes from your differences, not your similarities to other people. And it's funny, I work with high school students and college students on this very topic. And when you ask the average teenager or tween or millennial, or anyone really, what makes you different? It's a hard question for us to answer, because what we do is we assume like we are just like everybody else. So if you live in New York City and your kids go to school, they're like, oh, I'm a kid that goes to school in New York, born here, lived here, raised here. And they look to define themselves by what's around them, as opposed to their own ideas, their own aspirations, their own motivation. And the challenge we have right now is, due to the dominance of social media and pop culture, that those forces make us think that we should aspire to be like the people that we see. But the reality is, the power comes from the contrast. The power comes from your own differentiators. And the key to that long-term happiness is the contrast. And it's hard, because it's easier to be a we than it is an I. And so think about that as we go through this. So we understand what you stands for, your own understanding of yourself. Okay. We've talked about the benefits that come with it. We've talked about the fact that it's hard, that it's scary, because it's easier to be like everybody else. But if you're okay with the concept of getting to know you, let's talk about how we do it. So The first thing you want to do is you want to think about, okay, who am I? Where am I? And what am I doing currently in life? What is it that I love? What is it that I hate? And what are all those things in between? So if you want to think about it from an intellectual standpoint, you divide your life into layers, okay? And you try to keep on to the good stuff, right? And ideally, you're going to get rid of the annoying stuff and the stuff that's meaningless. And it's hard because some of you may be thinking, well, gosh, the thing that annoys me most is my job. Okay. And especially in this day and age, in this current environment, now is not the time to leave a job. Okay. Now is not the time to quit. And most of us, even if we want to do it, can't afford to just quit a job because we need to live, we need to make money. So some of this is almost like a wish list. Okay. Break your life into layers, figure out the stuff that you love, figure out the stuff that you hate. And there's a lot of stuff that falls in between. Isolate the things that are super important that reflect who you are and focus on those. And then the things that really annoy you that you can logically get rid of them. And that's going to come in the form of so many things for so many different people. And what you want to do is you want to fill in those gaps of those layers that you've eliminated with really good stuff, okay? With things that motivate you, with things that inspire you, with things that you've learned from, like failures, okay? I always congratulate people when they fail because I think failure is awesome, right? Failure to one person is defined differently than it is to others. But to me, the greatest part about failure is your ability to recover and the ability to move on. And so this whole process of delayering your life and filling in the good stuff is exciting, but it can also be scary, right? And again, as I said, it's important to be realistic with this because there are going to be some things that you hate, but that you need to do. And so part of this is, okay, figuring out, well, how can I make a bad situation better? And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Okay. So the thing is, when you're going through this layering and figuring out the great stuff and the stuff that's terrible and everything in between, again, you don't want to compare yourself to other people. You want to focus on you. Where are you in your life? What are you doing? What is it that helps you get out of bed in the morning? And what is it that makes you want to pull the covers over your head and go back to sleep? Okay. You want to admit the truth. Don't be afraid of it. If you ask yourself tough questions and admit the real answers, then you'll be able to figure it out. And the crazy part is, if you can't be honest with yourself, then who can you be honest with? Okay. And as I mentioned before, you want to recognize the failure because many times there's so much that we can learn from it. And the key, as I said, honesty leads to self-discovery. So be honest with yourself. Be honest when you're defining these layers. Be honest in when you're saying, okay, this is what I love, this is what I hate, and this is everything in between. Because if you can't be honest with yourself, then who can you be honest with? So these are just a bunch of questions to ask yourself, and there are, millions of others, but things to think about. What inspires you? What motivates you? What excites you? People ask me sometimes, who do I find inspirational? Who do I admire? And there are two people that I admire a lot, Kate Middleton and Michelle Obama. And I admire them for different ways and for different reasons. But part of the reason that they motivate me and they inspire me, and I just think they're amazing women, is because of their humility and because of their ability to somehow raise a family in a position where the whole world is always watching them. And they just seem normal. And so they inspire me. Some of you may hate Michelle Obama or Kate Middleton, and you may be inspired by other people. So that's what I'm saying. You need to be honest with yourself when you're asking these questions, because the honesty is what's going to help you figure yourself out. It's going to help you define you. Okay. Think about what holds you back from being authentic, right? How do you sabotage yourself? What do you do to get in the way of yourself? One of the things that I'm always find so fascinating is the how and the why of things. It might be theater, it might be somebody making a company, it might be someone launching a new product. And when you talk to people that it took them a long time to get something done, they often will tell you the same answer. Why did it take me so long? I got in the way of myself, right? And the challenge you have here is, if you're not honest, if you aren't realistic with what motivates you, what inspires you, what excites you, how do you sabotage yourself, then you're getting in the way of yourself. And so the only person you have to blame in that situation is you. And that's something really powerful to think about. Other things to ask yourself: what scares you, right? What is it that scares you? It could be this current situation that we're all in, and that's understandable because it scares a lot of people. Okay. How do you define success? And again, the idea of success is different to each and every one of us. How much do you trust yourself? How much do you trust your instincts? Do you listen to others more than yourself? And that comes to that whole thing that we were talking about before with regards to Instagram and other forms of social media that people look to help define who they are. But what's your inner gut telling you? And I can just tell you personally, over the years, I've learned to listen to myself. There's that little person inside of you, I always say, sort of your inner id. And usually when I'm in a situation where that little inner id is scared or nervous, then it's the right thing to do. When that little inner id gets kind of bored, then I know it's time to pivot, or time to change direction, or time to try to redefine things so they can become more exciting. So I've learned to listen to myself, because let me tell you, the times I've ignored myself, that little inner feeling inside of me, I've been disappointed. Another question, another big one is, what's one thing, if you could change in your life, what would it be? Right? And then another one is, what are 3 words that best describe me? And as Aristotle once said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. So just think about that one as we continue our discussion. Okay, so we've talked about the concept of what you means, your own understanding. We've talked about the way to get to know yourself. And now we're going to talk about the benefits of doing so. The benefits of knowing you, the benefits of you. Most of us, it's crazy. We somehow think that self-discovery is selfish, but it's actually the opposite. Because the reality is, if you know who you are, if you have a great sense of you, it's going to help you in all facets of your life. It's going to help you with relationships. It's going to help you with your career. And it's even going to help you with your health. So let's talk about relationships. The more accepting of ourselves that we are, the less we care about other people's approval, because we're comfortable with who we are, right? We tend to follow that conscience, that inner id, as I was talking about before. We tend to be able to follow through with things. We tend to be able to meet deadlines because we know that we have the ability to do it. I'm a big believer. If I tell someone I'm going to do something, I do it, and I do it in the time frame I'm going to do it in, and I do it to the best of my ability. Because to me, that's a really, really important quality to have. And if I'm running into a roadblock, I'm the first person to say, you know what, I need some extra time because I don't believe in lying. I think it just comes back to bite you in the butt. So I think that, by knowing yourself, you know what you're capable of. You know where you might need more help. You know what's realistic and what might be challenging. And that's just going to make you a better person in relationships, be they at work, be it outside of work, or even at home. And it also empowers you, when you're confident with who you are, to be your best self to other people. And it helps you appreciate the friends that are truly your friends, and have the confidence to eliminate the frenemies. I know that's like a kid word, but it really applies. We all have people in our life, I know I do, that cause us stress. And you feel like you're the friend. You do all the inviting, you do all the reaching out, and they just do all the reciprocating. Those people, sometimes you don't need. And there's no formula, there's no metric for saying, okay, this is the type of person I should keep, and this is the type of person that I don't need to be friends with. My rule is all of my friends represent a different part of my life, and provide different opportunities, and just fulfill different needs that I have intellectually. And those that become taxing are the ones that sometimes I'm like, gosh, is this the right person for me to continue to have a relationship with, a friendship with? or maybe it's time for a pause, or maybe they're not really my friend. So again, when you're confident or more confident of who you are, it enables you to think about these things from an integrated perspective. Career. It's so helpful if you have a strong sense of who you are in your career. I mean, these are just a couple of the pluses. First thing, it really helps you discover your abilities, your capabilities in your dreams. It helps you to think about directions that you might be able to go in. It helps you realize, what strengths you really have, and also the confidence to move forward with those strengths. It also helps you recognize the frustrations and the annoyances and the dislikes. And you're going to get to a certain point in life, and I don't know, some of you are probably like me and you're there, you've been there for a while, and some of you are getting there, where you realize there are certain things you don't like to do. And then you realize you have this, well, gosh, why do I actually have to do them? I don't. And so knowing yourself empowers you to have this recognition of, oh my gosh, I don't have to do this anymore if I don't want to. And it's really amazing. And, it's almost like you've discovered this superpower that you didn't know that you had. And so it's a really, really important thing, because it kind of frees you up to do other things and to use your intellect in other ways that you never thought possible. And as I'm getting at, it helps you focus on what inspires you based upon your skills and your passions and your strengths. Okay. You don't always have to do stuff that involves your weaknesses. And you're going to get to that point in life, like I'm saying, where you will say bye-bye to those things and move on to the really good stuff. And then it also helps you in terms of, if you're a consultant or an entrepreneur, to select jobs and projects that you're excited about, and that that your strengths are going to be really capitalized on. And it also empowers you to recognize where you need help. Okay, we all can't be great at everything. As much as we'd like to be, it's impossible. And so what we can understand is it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to bring in people on a project that have a complementary skill set to you. That's knowing who you are. That's understanding what your strengths are. That's understanding who you are and being honest with yourself and saying, okay, I can do this part of this project, but I need someone else to help me with this, rather than trying it all yourself. Health. I'm a runner, that's why I put this picture in here. Health, again, understanding yourself helps you emotionally, it helps you physically, and it helps you mentally. Emotionally, you tend to have a greater sense of calm and satisfaction because you understand who you are. Physically, you're going to take care of yourself more because you appreciate yourself more. And mentally, it's going to help you because you're going to have greater clarity of thought, which is, again, it's just so helpful and so invigorating when you aren't worrying, when you know what you should focus on, and you can kind of get rid of the stuff that you don't need to focus on. Sometimes we get caught up in a problem. I know this happens to me, and you start to stress about it. And then like this little light bulb goes off inside of you and you're like, oh my gosh, wait, but what if I did X, Y, Z, right? And that moment of clarity that comes when that light bulb goes on, that's because you know yourself and you realize the strengths that you have, and you have this ability now to get outside your own box and to see the problem from a different perspective, and to realize that there's some stuff that you can ask for help for, or there's some stuff that you can capitalize on, or there's some stuff that you personally can march forward on or forward with, right? But you need clarity of thought to be able to do those things. And again, understanding who you are is going to empower you to do that. Okay. So if any of you have teenagers, or tweens, or maybe even like kids that are in 3rd or 4th grade, there's this popular phrase that they've used called, they say, you do you. And, when they first started saying it to me, I thought it was sort of obnoxious, and then I kind of embraced it. And then I thought about it and I was like, well, gosh, you do you. That's right, right? Because if you know you, if you understand who you are, if you have your own understanding, you can do you better, right? And that light bulb inside of you with all those great ideas that you have is going to come to life. And it's going to provide a great catalyst, a great springboard for you to take you into different directions. And here's the crazy part, is when you do you, you're going to be a better version of you. All right. Researchers estimate that 40% of our happiness is within our control. It's crazy, 40% of it, right? By discovering who you are and what you want to be, you have the greatest potential of reaching your greatest opportunity of reaching your potential, leading a happy and fulfilling life, and being a more authentic version of you. So there are two things that are important to me when it comes to myself. And one is being real, and the other is being honest. And when I do workshops, or when I give speeches, or when I work with people one-on-one, I am who I am. And I don't lie, don't beat around the bush. I will be honest with people and what I think. And I value people that have those qualities, because I know that is who I am. I'm also a big believer in humility. And I think humility is part and parcel with being real and being authentic and honesty. So those are the things that are the authentic version of me, right? But they're going to be different for you. You're going to do you differently than I do me. And that's something that's really important to realize. And the reason this whole soul-searching, self-exploration, self-discovery for the idea of you is really important is because it helps you realize what matters. And that's going to translate itself into every aspect of your life. And it's going to empower you to discover things about yourself that you never realized. So along this path to self-discovery and to understanding who you are, there are a couple things to remember. Okay. One thing is try it out. Okay. Once you realize something new about yourself, try it out. So one of the things I do these workshops for women where we talk about impromptu conversation. And a thing that's really scary for people, in addition to giving speeches, is going to events, right? Now, we don't have this problem right now since we're all home, but back in the day when we used to go to live events, a really scary thing for someone is to go to a holiday cocktail party, or to go to a business meeting, or to go to a conference, a big conference by themselves. Because what we all tend to do is we're afraid of walking in by ourselves. And so what we all tend to do is we tend to go over to the bar or the coffee stand and get a beverage, and we scan the room. And we look for the people that look just like us, because for some reason there's comfort in similarity, right? We perceive that if people look like us, that we're going to have something in common with them. So we get our coffee or a glass of wine or whatever, and we zoom over, or maybe we carefully walk over, as opposed to zoom over, and start to try to talk to them, right? And we get 5 minutes into the conversation and we're like, oh my gosh, this person is so boring, but now I'm sort of committed to talking to them. So what I tell people to do is do what you wouldn't do. Go and talk to the person that looks absolutely nothing like you. Nothing like you. And discover something new about yourself, about them, and learn something about something that you know nothing about through that conversation, right? So that's just an example of something that you can try, right? Learn things and try them out. And if it scares you, then you don't have to do it again. But if you realize that you learn that you love to do something, give it a try and see. Okay. Second hugely important thing, especially right now, is pay tribute to the little things in life. Appreciate the little things. Celebrate the everyday. Don't wait for big moments. Okay. The little things in life are the ones that really matter. The big things come and go, but the little things are the things that make you happy as a person, right? Because if we have to go from one big event to one big event, life can be pretty empty, right? I was joking with Joanna before that I'm a big planner. And what's hard for me right now is I can't plan anything, because who knows when any sort of modicum of normal is going to come back into play. So what we're trying to do, which I think a lot of people are doing, is just have a lot of great family time and create a lot of really special moments now while we have the time, before our life goes back to the crazy chaos that it normally is. So appreciate the little things, and appreciate, as hard as this time is for everybody, try to appreciate the time that you have to think about yourself and your family. Third thing, smile. Smiling goes such a long way with everybody. It's infectious, a smile. You know, if you're in a tough conversation with someone, or you're in an awkward conversation with someone and you just smile, it's a way to really break ice and make a friend, or just bring a sort of sense of compassion to a situation. Step out of your comfort zone. Go beyond your norm. Okay. It's really easy to get comfortable doing the same thing. Okay. I think for many of us right now, we feel like our life is kind of on like Groundhog Day. We get up, we do the same thing. Maybe we go out for a run. Maybe we go out ride our bike. Maybe go and walk our dog. We do a couple of Zoom calls. We might make a lovely dinner or order in from our favorite restaurant. We watch some TV or a movie, then we go to bed, and we wake up doing the exact same thing every day. And what's really hard right now is we can't even go somewhere to break up the monotony because we're all home. Okay. But once you get the chance to try new stuff, try it. Go beyond your norm, right? Don't sit there and think, oh gosh, I wish I could do such and such. Go and do it. Try it out. See if it's something that you really, really enjoy doing, right? Try, right? And accept compliments. Celebrate your own success, right? I'm terrible at this. I really am. Someone gives me a compliment, I always try to pass it along to other people. It's really hard to say thanks to a compliment. Really, really hard. And I don't know why that is, but it just is. So I'm here to tell you that you should accept those compliments and be proud of who you are, but be gracious and stay humble. Because to me, those are two really, really important qualities. So to end, I just want to end with this quote from Betty Friedan, who wrote The Feminine Mystique. And I just think it's so timely and so right on. She says, or said, it's easier to live your life through someone else than to complete yourself. The freedom to lead and plan your own life is frightening if you have never faced it before. It is frightening when a woman finally realizes that there is no answer to the question, who am I, except the voice inside of herself. And I think, again, it's so incredibly important for all of us right now to take the time to think about, what do we want to do when we come out of this situation? The past 6 weeks have been hard, and it looks like it's going to last a little longer. And even when we get back to whatever normal is, it won't be what normal was for a long time. And many of us, some of us, are scared of what that new normal is going to be. And many people are already mourning the normal that they had before. But try not to let it drag you down. Try not to be something to get in the way of you. It's really important that you take this time to discover who you are and how you want to define yourself after this whole thing is over, and how you want to position yourself after this whole thing is over. And something that we're doing in my family is, as I said, we're really trying to create special moments, playing board games, cooking together, doing family Pilates, because we're not going to get this time again. And we're trying not to focus on all the bad stuff that's going on in the world. We're trying to figure out some modicum of good stuff to rally around. So, take the time to focus on you right now and think about, okay, I'm getting through this. I'm going to get through this. What do I want to do after I get out of this? And just one thing I wanted to offer up. So in June, we're going to be doing a series of workshops about this whole self-discovery project, all virtually. And it's going to be a combination. It's going to be 3 weeks, and there's going to be 2 parts to each week. One is the wisdom workshop, which is the first session of the week, the first 60-minute session. And then part 2 of that is the buzz session. So the idea is that you come together and you talk about, we talk about ideas and concepts relating to each of the topics. So the first week we talk about self-discovery and who you are and who you want to be. We do a personality test and think about all that great stuff. And then you take a pause and we come back later in the week and we talk about, okay, this is what we learned about ourselves. What does it mean? And then the following week, we talked about definition and who you want to be based upon what you learned about yourself or what direction you want to take your career in. And then we come back 2 days later and we talk about what it means for us. It's kind of a group think, these buzz sessions. And then the third week, how are you going to make it happen, right? The great thing, people always say to me after these workshops, of, oh my God, Catherine, it was so great. I learned so much. It's so awesome. And then they go back to their busy life. And so what I've learned in doing this and teaching this and doing it myself is I have to put together an action plan. I have to put together a timeline for how I want this stuff to happen. Even in this crazy time where every day seems like the same day, I'm making lists. I'm giving myself deadlines because I know for me, that's my best way to self-manage and to make stuff a reality. So what we're going to talk about in that third section is how do you do that for yourself? All right. So the workshops start in June. The dates are there. They're going to be Mondays and Wednesdays from 12 to 1. So if you want more information, we'll be sending this flyer around tomorrow through Elevate, but you can visit my website, which is just my name, CatherineLancioni.com, and everything is right there. So I want to thank you guys for listening. And again, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me and my ideas on, the concept of you. And I hope you learned a thing or two. And I would love to open it up to questions.
Catherine, thank you so much for your presentation, for taking the time to be here with us today. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Please feel free to send in your questions now if you have them, questions or comments for Catherine. I'm gonna actually type in, Catherine, I'm gonna type in your website URL into the chat so that it's easy to copy and paste for anyone who's looking for it. And as Catherine mentioned, that the flyer that she shared at the end there will be sent out via email to all registrants tomorrow afternoon. So keep an eye out in your inbox there if you're interested. Catherine, thank you so much for being here with us today, and everyone for engaging and tuning in. This was recorded, so if anyone needs to go back and play any of their favorite parts, you can find that video on our website. Catherine, it looks like there's a question about the workshop.
Okay.
Can you see that? Or I can read out to you. Marta says, thank you, that was great. Is there a cap on how many people can sign up for the workshops?
Well, it's a great question. I appreciate it. So here we go. Here come all the questions. It's always exciting to see what people post. Anyway, so yeah, so the cap is 10, but we will run 10 or 12. It's going to be on Zoom, so I don't want it to get beyond that because I want everyone to have the time to talk and think and learn. So 12 people, but if I need to, we can run another session of it at another time. It's completely fine. So, feel free to get your friends even. And I have to say, we do a program for teens, similar format. So if you have a high school student in particular, or someone who's graduating this year, who's going off to college, and God, what a weird year to graduate from high school. We are running workshops on that. So if you guys like, I could send you around information on that too. Okay, so our first question. All right, so we talked about the workshops. And again, just go to my website and the flyer's there for that. So there was a question, when starting to ask yourself the tough questions, how can you narrow in on specific answers if the questions feel too broad to tackle? You need to, before you do this, what I would do is I would make a list. My husband always jokes, I'm a big list person because I always have my pad and my pen with me in whatever I do. So what I would do is I would make a list of things that really inspire you, right? The things that you're great at. So your inspirations, your strengths, and then your weaknesses is the other part of the pad. And then in that middle area, I think that's the stuff that you want to focus on. There's things that you think you're good at or you think you're okay at. So dive deep and ask and try to come up with questions that focus on those things. And another great thing to do is if you have a spouse or a partner or your best friend or your mom or your sister, ask them, so what do you think my strengths and weaknesses are? Because people know you better than you realize. And if you can trust their opinion, I think that's a great way to start by looking at the areas that you want to delve into. Okay, next question. How do you handle you doing you when other people are intimidated by your newfound attitude? Okay, remember, you need to stay humble. That's like the most important thing. Humble, humble, humble. People aren't intimidated by your attitude. They're intimidated by your confidence, right? It's not attitude, it's confidence. Someone I know well said a great thing once, and he goes, there's a fine line between being confident and being cocky, right? And think about that. It's so true. And that humility is the line between the two, right? Confidence scares people because most people don't have it. And the reason they don't have it is they haven't taken time to get to know themselves. So it's not attitude. It's just you understanding you and you doing you in a way that's authentic. So remember, you don't mean to scare anybody. You don't mean to intimidate anybody. You're just cool with who you are. And that unto itself can scare a lot of people. Okay, any more questions? That's it so far. I'm trying to think what other pointers I have. So this isn't something that you're going to do overnight. This is an exploration. It's a journey. And I think, and I'm not a big pop music fan, but Taylor, someone actually just wrote a comment about this. Taylor Swift has that new song out, or relatively new, If I Were a Man. And someone in the chat just wrote, confidence in women scares people, unfortunately. Confidence in a man is acceptable, and it's so unfair. And it's so true. And I so agree with your comment, Rebecca. And if you listen to that Taylor Swift song and you see the video, there's so much in there that we all sit and we just like, that's so true. I watched that video with my husband and my son, and I made them watch it with me. And I'm like, do you get it? And their reaction was, what? Because they don't, right? In this day and age, they still don't. And that was sad to me, because we work so hard to be who we are. We work so hard to have our businesses and to do everything in the world. And it's still, and that's why Elevate is so wonderful, is we are all trying to work together to be proud and to be strong and to sort of fight against all of these misconceptions. So I think it's important that you be proud of who you are, and that you discover who you are and you work it. As they say, you work it, girl. That was from Pretty Woman with Julia Roberts. But it's important that you be happy with who you are and be proud of who you are, and don't let any man try to break you down for you doing you well. Okay. Next question. Oh, Catherine, someone said, thank you. Are you open to sharing what led you to this work and your smart realizations? Did you have struggles that put you on a path for deep self-evaluation and discovery? Or did you always get this and then double down? That's a great question. So my whole life has been based upon the word no. And I think that for me has been my single greatest motivator. You shouldn't apply to that college. You shouldn't apply to that graduate school program. You shouldn't apply for that job. And every time someone said that to me, my attitude was, oh, no, 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 no. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it well. And I may not be the smartest person in the room. I may not be the most intellectual person in the room, but I know that I will work hard, and I will be honest, and I will do my best. And for me, it actually worked. And I always tell people, I know what I'm good at, I know what I'm great at, and I know what I suck at. And trust me, there's a lot of stuff that I suck at. And I try to improve the stuff that I'm good at. It doesn't always work, right? So for me, it's been a journey. And I would say it probably came, I don't know, about 10 years ago, where I realized, like, you know what, I'm at this point in life where I've done some great stuff, and I've had a lot of really cool adventures, and I've met a lot of amazing people. And I can't be everything to everybody. And so that was when I started to really focus on the stuff that I had come to understand about myself that I was good at. And it was very liberating, because I was able to shed those layers that didn't make sense anymore, and to focus on the stuff that I wanted to focus on, while balancing out the things that I still needed to do. I hope that helps. Okay. Someone else, Jessica asked, how do you address this with teens when they are still defining themselves? Oh, it's such a great question. So my kids, as I said, they are both teenagers, and I have a boy and a girl. And what I've learned is they give me hints, right? So my son will say to me something in passing about, something not relating to sports. He loves sports. He's a varsity athlete, and sees that as really important. But there's also stuff he likes to cook. He likes films. He likes specifically indie films, which we've discovered during this life pause. So what I try to do is to make suggestions, right? You can't tell your kids what to do. You can only suggest. I try to suggest that they try it out. And that seems to have worked. And when I ask, well, have you done this? And they say no. And then I say, why? And they say, I don't know. Then I suggest that they reconsider doing it. And that leads to very few arguments and some self-discovery on their part. So I listen really carefully, and I try to support the stuff that seems like it's percolating within. So I hope that helps answer your question. Okay, Rebecca said, what's the name of that song again? If I Were a Man by Taylor Swift. And you should definitely have them watch the video is all I can say. And before this whole pandemic thing happened, I was kind of obsessed with watching it. So it's Taylor Swift, If I Were a Man. Andrea asked, are the workshops collaborative? Yeah, absolutely. So the wisdom workshops, the first part of the week on the Mondays, that's where I talk, sort of in a format like this. And then you guys can ask questions and I respond. But then on the Wednesday session, it is just a giant, if you've ever been to a lunch and learn or a chat, not a chat and chew, but like a lunch and learn where people like just talk, that's all that it is. I'm going to be there. I'm going to discuss. We're going to talk about what we learned on Mondays, and we're going to talk about how we can apply it to our own life on Wednesdays. So yes, they are very much collaborative because this stuff is great to be collaborative. Dottie asked, do you offer teens workshops to assist in defining potential career paths? Yeah, absolutely. If you email me, I can send you that information. Okay, Shireen wrote, do you focus on what you are good at and enjoy and keep putting time towards it and strengthening it? Or do you put your time towards the thing you are weak at and build that muscle? It depends. It depends are you terrible at something that you love? That's the question to ask yourself. Or does it just cause you anxiety, right? I'm a runner, as I mentioned at one point during the deck, but I haven't always been a runner. In fact, in high school, I hated to run. The concept of running a mile was horrible. And the way I got into it was actually when I was in grad school, and it was a really stressful time for a lot of reasons. And I just needed some relief, so I started running. And so that was an example of something that I was really terrible at, that I took the time, as you're saying, to build that muscle and become a lot better at it. But I don't always do that at all. I'm terrible at science and math. I'm absolutely horrible at it. And so I have, obviously logically steered away from things that require those skills. I can be really creative, but I don't have the patience to learn necessarily how to put that into a marketing brochure or something else. So I'll give my ideas to people and then have them go and do it. And that way I give the concept, but they do the design nuances. And I've learned that I enjoy thinking creatively, but I'm terrible at the execution. So I think it depends upon what the weakness is. Julie says, I love feedback, but my confidence has scared other women that I'm too assertive. That happens all the time. I grew up empowered by my father to be strong and educated. How do I soften this approach to help other women in growing their confidence? I often authentically express in areas that they are good at, and I talk about the areas that I suck. I think everybody who has helped me in my project, specifically if they are women, but I guess I'm missing the mark on how to be more encouraging or just toning my masculinity down. Help. My gosh, there's so much in that question. So as I was saying before, confidence scares people because most people don't have it. I think the best thing to do, especially when you're trying to mentor women that are younger than you, is to tell stories, or to use the line that a boss of mine used to use was, have you considered XYZ? And I'm thrilled to hear that you are being supportive of other women, because I have to be honest with you. I am shocked and saddened so many times when women are mean to other women in the workforce. And I just don't get it. I don't understand why we don't stick up for each other. It doesn't make sense to me at all. And so to your point, and the challenge we have in the workforce, right, is if we're strong and if we're confident, we come across as bitchy, and that's terrible. But I'm sure for many of you, especially, the women that asked the question, I'm sure you've encountered that. So the way to tone it down, as I said, is to use stories, and to use stories about yourself, and maybe of those of other people that you know, and to admit fault, um, and to admit that things always didn't work out. And I know that for myself, I often share the good, the bad, and the ugly with people. And that way you show you're not perfect. And that way you show that you do have things that, you've tried and they haven't worked out, that you failed. And I think if you're honest with people and you talk about all of your experiences, good and bad, then it doesn't make you come across as bitchy, and it doesn't make you come across as too assertive. It makes you come across as authentic. And I think that that's really important in talking to other women, especially in this day and age. Okay, is that all the questions? I think that's all the questions that we have. So I just want to thank you guys for taking the time. I love, 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 love talking to other women, and I'm so thrilled that we had so many people sign up to join. I know Joanna and we almost had 300 people sign up for this webinar. So that was really exciting for me. And I just want to tell you guys that everything is from the heart. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to ask the questions. I appreciate, sharing your perspectives and your ideas. And, I do this stuff because I love it, because I just try to help other people. I've had a lot of great experiences in the world, and I've had a lot of horrible ones. And I just try to share so that we can all learn from each other. So thank you so much. I, really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us today as well. Thank you, everyone, for engaging in the chat box or sending in your questions. I know there are lots of messages there thanking you as well, Catherine. And do keep an eye out for that email from us tomorrow with some more information about keeping in touch with Catherine and the workshop that she shared with us today. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you, Catherine. Bye.
Take care.